She had the same routine every day: straighten every room in the sprawling mansion, serve lunch, scrub the floors, reset the table, and do it all over again. Invisible, always invisible. That had been her life for 3 long years. 3 years, wearing the same faded navy uniform, pouring coffee for the same faces that rarely lifted their eyes to meet hers. 3 years listening to talk about private jets, imported cars, and 7-figure investments, while she quietly did the math to see if her paycheck could cover her mum's medication and still keep the lights on at home. But today felt different. There was a charge in the air, the kind that makes your stomach flutter, even if you can't name why. Maya Alvarez noticed it as soon as Henry Whitaker, owner of the house and head of Whitaker Premier Developments, came downstairs earlier than usual for breakfast, fumbling with his tie for the 5th time. "Is the house spotless, Maya?" he asked, not really waiting for an answer. "Yes, Mr. Whitaker," she replied, like always. He barely nodded and hurried to his office. The reason for the nerves had a name: Khalid Mansour. He wasn't just any executive. He was a Lebanese hotel magnate with a chain of ultra-luxury resorts across the Middle East, in town to explore a partner for a major expansion in the Americas. For Henry, who built high-end properties across Texas and beyond, this was the once-in-a-lifetime deal. Prestige, international press, generational money, the kind of contract people brag about for the rest of their careers. Maya knew the stakes without trying to listen in. When you're treated like part of the wallpaper, people talk like you aren't there. The week before, over dinner, Henry told his wife all about the Arab deal, the numbers, the rollout plan, the need to impress. Here was the catch. Mr. Mansour didn't speak Portuguese. This wasn't Brazil, and his English was too basic for complex negotiations. He preferred Arabic, where he felt precise and safe. Henry had bet everything on his charismatic commercial director, Brandon Cole. Brandon had promised an interpreter of the highest caliber, PhD in Near Eastern languages. "Nothing to worry about, boss." Brandon said it with that practiced smile, the kind that gets you invited to golf weekends and rooftop fundraisers. What Maya did next would flip the power in that room on its head. At 8 that morning, the interpreter cancelled with a blunt text. "Emergency. Don't make it. Apologies." Brandon tried to skate over the disaster with small talk in English. Sports. Weather, barbecue joints. Mr. Mansour was polite but restless, his patience thinning like the last inches of coffee in a cup. They met in the Whitakers' formal living room, the one with glass walls 2 stories high, crystal chandeliers, and a postcard view of the manicured lawn. Maya had been told to bring coffee and water and then disappear. She knew that role well. She set the tray down and moved toward the door. That's when the bottom fell out. Khalid adjusted in his chair, drew a long breath, and began speaking in Arabic, steady, low, and absolutely clear. He gestured to the plans on the walnut table, to the windows, then tapped his own chest. He spoke for nearly 3 minutes straight, his voice filling every inch of that glossy room. No one moved. Henry stared at Brandon. Brandon stared at the rug. 2 other executives traded worried glances. "Did anyone catch that?" Henry asked, voice tight, almost a whisper. Silence stretched and snapped. Brandon wiped sweat from his brow, tugged at his silk tie like it had turned into a noose. Desperate to deflect, he reached for a cheap laugh. "Boss, I think he's complaining the coffee's cold." A few strained chuckles ricocheted around. Brandon's eyes landed on Maya, still near the doorway with the empty tray. His grin sharpened. "Hey, Maya," he called, sing-song and mean. "You're here all day, soaking up every conversation. Bet you understood the gentleman just fine, right?" The room laughed again, relieved for any break in the embarrassment. Minnie Hook. The joke he tossed at the maid was about to cost him his career. Block 3, P11, P15. Brandon basked in the attention. "Go on," he prodded. "Translate the man's speech for us. You must know Arabic from, what, TV dramas?" More laughter. Heat rushed to Maya's face. Years of tiny cuts flashed through her mind. The cracks about her uniform. The whispers about the smell of poverty. The times her notebooks were mocked like they were a child's game. She straightened her posture exactly the way her mother had taught her. "Don't let them see you break." Henry, cornered and sweating, turned the cruelty into a dare. "You know what, Brandon?" he said, rising from his leather chair. "If Maya can repeat Mr. Mansour's words, word for word, I'll hand her your job right now." The room erupted. Real laughter this time. Brandon clapped like he'd already won. "Deal, boss. Put it in writing." Khalid watched, face unreadable, clearly catching the tone if not the language. He did not like being the center of a joke he couldn't understand. Henry looked at Maya. "Well, take the dare, or should we call it Brandon's little prank?" She set the tray on the console as gently as if it were crystal, smoothed the faded uniform, and met Mr. Mansour's eyes, not Henry's, not Brandon's. When she spoke, the room froze. "Peace be upon you." "Mr. Mansour," Maya said, in Arabic, smooth and precise. In that instant, every assumption in the room shattered like glass. Brandon's smirk evaporated. Henry's mouth fell open. For the first time since walking in, Khalid smiled. 16 years earlier, on the east side of Dallas, Maya was 10 when everything cracked. It was a Thursday in March, heavy rain tapping at the windows. She remembered the small things. The smell of coffee her mother Teresa brewed before 5, the old TV muttering in the background, her younger siblings asleep in the room they all shared. Then came the knock. 2 officers stood at the door, hats in hand. "Ma'am, are you Teresa Alvarez?" one asked. Teresa already knew. Mums always know. She gripped the doorframe, legs wobbling but refusing to buckle. From the kitchen table, spoon hovering over oatmeal, Maya watched as they explained a worksite collapse, illegally cut corners, 5 laborers gone. Her father was one of them. Maya didn't cry that day, not at the viewing, not at the burial. She watched her mother, 7 months pregnant, hold the pieces. Teresa was 28, suddenly widowed, with 4 kids to feed and another on the way, and less than $1,000 in the bank. The world doesn't pause for grief. 2 weeks later, Teresa took a job cleaning offices, leaving at 4 in the morning and dragging home close to 9 at night. That was the day Maya learned 2 things. Life isn't fair, and she'd need to outwork it anyway. As the oldest, Maya became second mom. Luke was 8, Miguel was 6, Bea was 4. When little Peter was born in May, she learned diapers, bottles, late-night rocking. She was 10. School became a luxury item. She went when she could, skipped when she had to nurse Peter through a fever, to pick up the others when Teresa's double shift ran long, to have dinner on the stove by 6. Teachers warned, "That girl won't make it if this keeps up." Teresa cried in secret. Maya pretended she didn't notice. Even with the missed days and the rolling blackouts that forced her to study by candlelight, she aced every subject. Numbers clicked. Words sang. Science and history snapped into place like puzzle pieces. At 12, she found her strange gift. A character on a prime-time drama had a French accent, and the music of it stuck. Maya repeated lines under her breath, scribbled words in a hand-me-down notebook, and hunted meanings in the neighborhood library's battered dictionaries. In 6 months, she could follow entire scenes without subtitles. "You have a feel for languages," said Miss Martin, her English teacher, a grey-streaked black woman who had a talent for spotting quiet brilliance. "Ever thought about linguistics or translation?" Maya laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it felt impossible. "Ma'am, I can barely stay in school. College is another planet." Miss Martin walked her to the public library, pointed to the language shelves, books, CDs, DVDs. All of this is free. Come as often as you can. So she did. Every Saturday morning, while Teresa worked and the neighbors watched the kids, Maya spent 4 hours buried in English, Spanish, and French. By 15, she spoke 3 languages. But life doesn't wait for dreams. Teresa's health wobbled, advanced diabetes, high blood pressure, a body carrying more weight than any one heart should. Prescriptions were expensive. The cleaning paycheck didn't stretch. Luke started flyering after school. Miguel sold candy at intersections. We babysat Peter, and Maya quit school with only 6 months left to graduate. She told herself it was temporary. She just had no idea how long temporary could be. She found work at a bakery, then a retail store, then as a nanny. Teresa cried, "You're so smart. You were meant for college." "We'll be okay," Maya said, squeezing her mother's calloused hands. "I promise." Inside, it felt like burying a future she hadn't met yet. The years blurred, 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week. At night, when the apartment went quiet, she studied. Second-hand textbooks, free apps, YouTube lessons with old earbuds so she wouldn't wake anyone. Italian, Mandarin, Arabic. Arabic was the hardest. Right-to-left script, new sounds in the throat, grammar that flipped her brain. She stuck with it anyway. 5 years, no teacher, no tuition, no certificate, just grit. By 23, Maya spoke 6 languages. It didn't fit on a resume in a way that mattered, though. Employers wanted the stamp, a diploma, a certificate, a line that said, "Approved." Oh, she applied to bilingual receptionist jobs. Degree required. International call centers, high school diploma required. She tried private tutoring, a few students here and there, but nothing steady enough to keep the bills paid. At 26 and out of options, she took a job as a housekeeper in the Whitaker mansion. "It's temporary," she told Teresa, "just until I save enough to finish school." 3 years later, she was still brewing coffee before dawn and wiping down marble counters after midnight. Invisible. But she never stopped studying. Every morning from 4 to 5:30, before the first load of laundry, she reviewed vocabulary, drilled grammar, and shadowed audio, until the words felt native in her mouth. She had no idea that this would be the day all those quiet hours would finally be seen. The test she never signed up for had arrived, and she was more than ready. The Whitaker place sprawled across nearly 10,000 square feet. 7 bedroom suites, 5 additional baths, 3 living rooms, a heated pool, a tennis court, and a garden fountain that probably cost more than Maya's entire neighborhood. She kept it shining by herself. Up at 5 every morning, even on Sundays, breakfast always ready. Fresh bread, fruit sliced like little sculptures, fresh squeezed juice, scrambled eggs for Henry, almond flour pancakes for Mrs. Whitaker, and waffles for their teenage daughter, Isabella. Isabella was 17, glossy hair, perfect nails, designer labels, everything Maya never had. The girl treated her with a cold indifference that stung more than open rudeness. "Maya, my room's a disaster. Fix it." The command came without eye contact, finger flicking toward the hall. "Yes, Miss Isabella." The room looked like a tornado had shopped online. Clothes draped everywhere, makeup dusting the vanity, damp towels melting into the duvet. Maya folded, sorted, and arranged in silence. Some pieces still had the tags. On them, price tags that could have covered 3 months of Teresa's rent. One afternoon, Maya found an English workbook wedged under Isabella's bed. It was pristine. Not even the first pages were cracked. Isabella attended an international prep school with private tutors 3 times a week, but the book was untouched. Maya flipped through a few pages, basic exercises, simple dialogues she could teach in her sleep. "What are you doing?" Isabella's voice sliced the air. The book nearly slipped from Maya's hands. "I'm sorry, miss," Maya said. "I was just snooping in my things," Isabella snapped, yanking the workbook away. "Do you even understand this? It's advanced, for people who actually studied." Maya swallowed the sting. "It won't happen again." "Better not," Isabella said, tossing the book on the bed. "And finish my room. I've got friends coming later." 2 days later, the same girl would need the help she just mocked. That Thursday, Maya heard muffled crying from Isabella's room. The door was cracked. She hesitated, then knocked softly. "Are you okay, miss?" Isabella swiped at her face. "None of your business." But Maya had already seen the test on the bed. An English exam circled in red. A failing grade. "I could maybe help," Maya said before she could stop herself. Isabella let out a bitter laugh. "You? Help me with English? You barely finished school." The words were a blade. Maya kept her voice even. "I speak English fluently and 5 other languages. I can explain if you'd like." "Get out," Isabella said, pointing to the door. "And forget you saw that." So Maya left. Isabella kept failing. Mrs. Whittaker wasn't cruel, just absent, living in a loop of charity luncheons, spa appointments, and girls' trips. She addressed Maya only to relay orders. "Could we have a special dinner Friday? Guests coming. Pool towels need changing. Make sure the china sparkles." Always in that polite but distant tone that turned people into services. Never please, rarely thank you. Mr. Whittaker saw himself as a generous employer. He paid on time, gave holiday gift baskets, and let Maya leave an hour early on Fridays. "I treat my staff well," he told friends. "I'm not like those exploitative bosses." He didn't know Teresa's name. He didn't know Maya had siblings. He didn't know she studied 6 languages. He knew she cleaned well, cooked well, and didn't cause problems. That was it. Once, during a cocktail hour with investors, Maya served drinks while listening to a man in a blazer complain, "The problem in this country is people don't want to study. They want everything handed to them." Henry nodded. "I offer opportunities, but folks have to hustle. I started from the bottom, studied hard, built my empire." Maya gripped the tray. Henry's bottom had come with a father who owned a construction firm and a car waiting at 18. He truly believed his own bootstrap story. She handed him his whiskey. He didn't look up. The worst part wasn't the insults. It was how easily they erased her existence. She could stand in a room and watch people discuss their finances, their affairs, their fights, all as if she were a lamp. On a Thursday, Mrs. Whittaker gossiped on the phone about a former maid who had stolen a blouse. "It vanished," she said loudly. "Had to fire her on the spot. You just can't trust people." Maya was dusting a shelf a few feet away. The volume never dipped. Every Thursday, Brandon Cole showed up for strategy sessions. He treated Maya like she was the punchline written in the margins. "So, Maya, picked up any reading skills yet?" he'd tease, laughing at his own jokes. "Or careful with those crystal flutes. They cost more than your yearly salary." Henry chuckled along, not out of malice, just reflex, the social autopilot of a man who has always been comfortable in every room. Once, during a high-stakes presentation, Maya slipped while serving coffee, didn't spill a drop, and Brandon still pounced. "Easy there, Maya. Break something and you'll have to pay." "Oh, wait, you can't." The room laughed. She apologized and left, hearing Brandon continue through the door. "This is what happens when you hire without formal qualifications. No training. 3 years like that, 1,095 days of being treated like furniture. Maya never complained, never snapped, never showed anger. She needed the job. Teresa needed her medication. The kids needed dinner. So Maya woke at 5, scrubbed, served, studied before sunrise, and fell asleep late. Repeat, 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 until that Tuesday, that meeting, that investor, that bet. And the moment she stopped being invisible, now, back in the living room, her Arabic cut through the air like a clean blade. "Peace be upon you, Mr. Mansour." Khalid's eyes widened. Henry went still. Brandon swayed as if the floor had tilted. The executives lowered their phones. Mrs. Whitaker, entering with more coffee, froze mid-step. Maya continued in flawless Arabic, switching to English to carry everyone along. "You said you were disappointed with this meeting. You expected professionalism and found disorganization. The lack of an interpreter shows disrespect for your time and your culture." Khalid rose slowly, eyes locked on Maya. Stunned, moved, and suddenly very interested. Then she translated the part that made Henry's stomach drop. "You said trust is the foundation of any partnership," Maya relayed, "and a company that can't prepare for an international meeting raises serious doubts about its ability to execute. You questioned whether you should invest millions with people who can't handle the basics of cross-cultural communication." With every sentence, Brandon's forehead shone brighter. Henry moved from shock towards something like managed panic. This was not a minor complaint. This was a walk-away warning, and none of them, not one, had understood it until Maya spoke. She didn't stop. "You mentioned receiving proposals from 3 American firms, and that so far this is the least prepared. You said you would give us only 10 more minutes to present something concrete before ending the meeting and moving to the next partner." Henry's eyes slid closed. 10 minutes. They had 10 minutes, and no one in the room knew it. Finally, the part that mattered most. "You explained your project. To build 5 luxury resorts along the U.S. coastline over the next 3 years, with an initial investment of $80 million. But you need a partner who understands Middle Eastern hospitality protocols and will respect your cultural standards. Someone who can literally speak your language." Silence pressed on the room. Khalid stepped toward Maya. In Arabic he asked, "Where did you learn my language?" "On my own, sir," she answered, also in Arabic. "Books, videos, stubborn practice." 5 years of early mornings." Khalid smiled, genuinely impressed. "Your pronunciation is better than many university students I've met. Did you study in Lebanon? In Saudi Arabia?" "No, sir. I studied at the Dallas Public Library and in my room after work." Khalid turned to Henry and said in careful English, "This woman is remarkable. Where did you find her?" Henry blinked. "She works here. In the house. She is your translator?" Khalid asked, confused. Henry's voice thinned. "No, she's our housekeeper." It took Khalid a beat to absorb that. When he did, disappointment shadowed his face. Not at Maya, at the waist. He spoke to her again in Arabic. "You are a housekeeper?" "Yes, sir," she replied. "And you speak 6 languages?" "Yes, sir. And you clean houses?" His disbelief carried an ache. "Why?" Maya hesitated only a second. "Because I do not have a diploma, sir. I had to work young to help my family. The market doesn't hire for knowledge. It hires for paper." Khalid closed his eyes, breathed in, and when he opened them something had shifted. Respect, admiration, and a righteous anger aimed at the system. He addressed Henry in slow but firm English. "She speaks 6 languages. 6. And you have her cleaning your floors?" Henry stammered. "I didn't know." "No one knew. She never said." Khalid's voice sharpened. "She should not have to say. You never asked." Brandon tried to jump in. "Mr. Mansour, please, I can explain." Khalid cut him off with a look, then asked Maya, "Was it this man who mocked you?" "Yes, sir. The same man who promised a translator and failed entirely." "Yes, sir." Khalid faced Brandon, and even without the Arabic, Brandon understood he was being dismantled. Khalid spoke quickly, gestures precise, pointing to Brandon, to Maya, to Henry. Maya translated into English as he went. This man represents what is broken in corporate culture. Arrogance without competence, empty promises and worse, disrespect toward the vulnerable. How can I trust my company to people like this? Khalid paused, then returned to English, eyes on Henry. You made a promise. You said if she knew what I said, she would get his job. He pointed at Brandon. Yes, Henry said, sweat beading. He looked at Brandon, then Maya, then the witnesses. I did say that. Are you a man of your word? Khalid asked. Or a man of jokes? The room held its breath. Mrs. Whittaker gasped. Isabella watched wide-eyed from the staircase. Brandon's hands flew up. Henry, you can't be serious. It was a joke. A joke. Enough, Brandon. Henry's voice cut clean for the first time in 3 years. For the first time, he really saw Maya, the woman who poured his coffee at dawn, who had stood inches from his life without him ever meeting her eyes, who spoke 6 languages while he never bothered to ask her last name. Henry was a decisive man. He'd built empires by moving fast. But for the first time in decades, he didn't know what to do. Everyone watched him. Khalid with arms folded, Brandon trembling, executives frozen, Mrs. Whittaker covering her mouth, and Maya calm as if she already knew the ending. Henry, Brandon pleaded, voice cracking, you can't do this. I've been with you for 8 years. 8 years. I built half the deals in this company. You can't fire me over a joke. Khalid latched onto the one word he understood in Portuguese. Piada, joke. You call this a joke? He asked, ice in his tone. Brandon turned to him, desperate. Sir, it was a tense moment. I didn't mean... You lied, Khalid said flatly. You lied about the interpreter. You did not prepare. You mocked this woman. And now you lie again. He pointed to the door. You are the problem. Henry had to choose between habit and integrity and the future of his company. Brandon's gaze ping-ponged around the room, begging for an ally. No one met his eyes, not after what he'd risked, not in front of the partner he had nearly driven away. Henry closed his eyes and did the math. $80 million. The biggest contract in company history, global expansion. All hinging on whether he meant the promise he'd made to get a laugh. But it wasn't just numbers. Henry thought about how many times he'd passed Maya in the hallway without seeing her. How many private conversations he'd had in front of her like she was wallpaper. How many chances he'd had to learn anything about the woman who kept his house running. 6 languages, self-taught, pre-dawn study sessions. And he had never asked her full name. He opened his eyes and truly looked at Maya. Brandon, he said, voice low but steady, you're fired. Silence boomed. Brandon stumbled. What? Henry, no, you can't. I can, and I am. You lied about the interpreter, nearly blew the biggest deal we've ever seen, and worse, you disrespected an employee in front of our guests. That is not how my company is represented. Gather your things. HR will follow up. Brandon stood there, fists clenched, chest heaving. For a second, it looked like he might explode. Then he scanned the room, Khalid, impassive, the executives avoiding his gaze, Mrs. Whittaker's disapproval, Isabella filming from the stairs, and Maya quiet, steady, victorious without gloating. He swallowed hard. You'll regret this, he spat and stormed out. The door slammed, echoing through the house, and then quiet. Henry turned to Maya, hands folded in front of her, uniform pressed. She waited. Maya, he said, clearing his throat. A promise is a promise. The commercial director role is yours, if you'll take it. A maid's offer had just become a life-altering decision. She blinked once, twice, as if making sure she'd heard correctly. Mr. Whittaker, I don't have the formal education for... You speak 6 languages, he cut in. You just salvaged an $80 million deal. You have more real-world competence than any piece of parchment can prove. Do you accept? Maya glanced at Khalid. He nodded, smiling. She looked to Mrs. Whittaker, shocked but not opposed, then to the executives, all waiting. "I accept," she said. Khalid clapped once, crisp. "Good," he said in English. He offered his hand to Maya. "Now we talk business." "Real business." "Yes," Maya said, squeezing his hand with calm strength. Khalid turned to Henry. "We sit. We talk," she translates. "A professional meeting." "Absolutely," Henry said, gesturing to the table. "Please." For the first time in 3 years, Maya sat at the table instead of standing with a tray. Khalid spoke in Arabic, and Maya rendered his words into English with surgical precision. "Mr. Mansour's project needs someone who bridges both cultures," she translated. "Someone who understands Middle Eastern hospitality protocols and American building realities." "He's been searching for that person for months," Khalid continued. "The resorts will serve families from Lebanon and across the region who visit the United States, people seeking privacy, luxury and cultural respect, appropriate dining, designated prayer spaces, family-friendly areas, all while honoring American hospitality standards." Henry took notes, nodding as the vision finally snapped into sharp focus, and then Khalid made an offer no one expected, least of all Maya. Maya's voice wavered slightly as she translated the next part. "Mr. Mansour asks if I would also work directly for him as the project's cultural relations manager. Salary in dollars, housing stipend, international health plan." The room went still. Henry's chest tightened. He had just promoted her, and now he might lose her. Khalid went on, and Maya relayed, "He says he doesn't want to take me away from this company. He wants a partnership. I would split my time, half with Whittaker Premier, half with the Mansour Group. I would be the official bridge between both." Khalid extended his hand to Henry. "Partnership," he said. "Real partnership. With real people." Henry shook it. "Partnership," he repeated, meaning it. Then Khalid turned back to Maya, switching to slow, careful Portuguese he'd practiced. "You, inspiration, your story. I want to share it. At my hotels, a woman who learns 6 languages alone and never gives up. May I tell it?" Maya's eyes shimmered. "Yes, Mr. Mansour," she said softly. For the first time since entering that room, the emotion crested. "You may." Khalid nodded, satisfied, and checked his watch. "Now we talk numbers, timelines." "Yes," Henry said. "Let's continue." The meeting went on, but now there was real communication, real respect. And Maya, the invisible woman, sat at the center of it, exactly where she'd always belonged. 2 hours later, signatures would turn a promise into a future. 2 hours later, when Khalid shook hands goodbye, the deal was inked. $80 million. 5 resorts, 3 years of work. Maya had 2 titles, a future and a quiet justice that felt better than any public revenge. 3 months later, the story spread through the company like lightning in a dry field. Brandon Cole, untouchable Brandon, was out, and the housekeeper had his job. When Maya walked into Whittaker Premier's downtown office the next morning, heads turned. Whispers rode the hallways. Admiration, envy, shock. She wasn't wearing the Navy uniform anymore. She had a simple suit bought late the night before, not expensive but sharp. Low heels, hair in a neat bun. The same Maya, only different. Henry was waiting in the lobby. "Good morning, Maya. Ready for your first day?" "Good morning, Mr. Whittaker. Ready?" He guided her floor to floor, making introductions. "This is Maya Alvarez, our new commercial director. She'll lead the Mansour partnership and all new international contracts." Reactions varied. Some shook her hand with respect. Others tried to hide a sneer. One executive in a red blazer eyed Maya up and down and whispered to a colleague, "She doesn't even have a degree. How is she a director?" Maya heard it and let it pass. She was used to that tone. Henry showed her the office, not Brandon's, but large, bright, with a view over downtown. Fresh desk, new computer, a plaque on the door. Maya Alvarez, International Commercial Director. Paperwork was already in motion. Contract signed, payroll set. Henry hesitated. "The pay is 23 times what you made before," he said. 23 times. She sat in the swivel chair, brushed her fingers over the glass desktop, and watched the city move below. Dallas had been her workplace since she was 15, always from the ground up, always serving. Now she was on the 15th floor, above it for once. "Mr. Whitaker," she asked, turning to him, "can I ask something?" "Of course. Why did you really do this? Was it only because of Mr. Mansour's deal?" Henry leaned against the wall, hands in pockets. "At first. Yes, I could not lose $80 million, he exhaled. "But when I saw his reaction to you, when I heard his words, I realized something." "What?" "That I've been a fool." He laughed without humor. "You worked in my home for 3 years. 3 years, Maya. I never asked you a thing. To me, you were just the person who cleaned. College saw your value in 3 minutes. I had 3 years and never looked." Maya didn't know what to say. Henry continued, voice rough. "Isabella came to me last night. She told me you offered to help with English, and she told you to shut up." He met Maya's eyes. "Why didn't you tell me you spoke all those languages?" "No one ever asked," Maya said gently. "And when you're invisible, you learn to keep quiet." Henry swallowed. "I'm sorry. For me, my family, Brandon, all of it. I accept your apology," Maya said. Did she hold a grudge? She'd felt anger, humiliation, the pull to quit 1,000 times. But resentment is a luxury poor people can't afford. Resentment doesn't buy insulin. "I don't hold grudges," she said. "I keep lessons." Henry nodded. "You're going to crush this." "I know it." He left, and Maya was alone in her office. Her office. She pulled out her phone and called her mom. "Hi, Mom." Teresa sounded tired. "Mija, are you okay? Did you get a break?" "Mom, I'm not a housekeeper anymore." Silence. "What do you mean, baby? Did you get fired?" "No, Mom, promoted." Tears welled. "I'm a director now. Commercial director. My salary is 23 times more." Teresa sobbed, laughing and crying in the same breath. "What? It's real, Mom," Maya said. "It happened yesterday. I spoke Arabic in a big meeting. I saved a contract, and the boss kept his promise." Teresa cried harder. "My daughter is a director. Dear God, you can stop working. I'll pay the bills, the medicine. Luke, Miguel, and Bea can go to better schools. Peter will have everything he needs." Maya wiped her eyes. "And you will rest." They talked for 20 minutes. Maya told her everything. The meeting, the firing, Khalid's offer. "Your father would be so proud," Teresa said softly. "So proud, Maya." When she hung up, Maya took a deep breath and opened a file. There was work to do, contracts to learn, projects to map, a title to honor. She didn't have a diploma, an MBA, or a family name. She had something else. Knowledge earned in the dark and the discipline to use it.